knights and wyverns, and a heroine who can handle a bow and arrow. Sign me up. This excerpt from Clotilda and the Wyvern has me hooked already. It's got that classic fairy tale feel, but with some interesting twists.
Right from the start, you can tell there's something more to this world than meets the eye. I mean, even just mentioning a wyvern instead of a dragon, there's a difference.
Oh, definitely. And I'm always up for a good monster deep dive. What sets wyverns apart? Besides the whole, not a dragon thing.
Well, wyverns are often associated with poison and guile. They're more than just fire-breathing behemoths. Think cunning, venomous, and a whole lot of trouble for our heroes. Not to mention, this excerpt throws in a kobold.
Kobold magic. Wyvern attacks. Sounds like this fairy tale takes a turn for the intense pretty quickly. Though, speaking of characters who defy expectations, we've got to talk about Clotilda. Stuck in court, surrounded by ladies in waiting, but she'd rather be anywhere else, practicing her archery skills.
It's a classic case of appearances can be deceiving. You think you're getting the typical damsel in distress, but Clotilda, she's not waiting around for a prince to save her.
No kidding. She's skilled with a bow, craves adventure. The story doesn't even try to hide her frustration at the limitations placed on her just because she's a woman in this society.
Exactly. It's subtle, but you can feel the author hinting at those societal norms, right? The things Clotilda isn't supposed to do or want simply because of her position. And yet, she yearns for agency, for a life outside the confines of the court.
You can practically hear her thoughts in that scene where she's secretly practicing archery, envying the prince's freedom to ride off on adventures. It's like she's just itching to break free from those expectations.
And then, just as you're settling into this rebellious princess vibe, bam, a giant wyvern attack.
Talk about a sudden shift in tone. Even in this short excerpt, the attack scene is so vivid, so terrifying. The author really doesn't shy away from the danger, do they?
Not at all. And that detail about the charnel pit, gruesome. A stark reminder that in a world of knights and magic, there are very real and very deadly consequences. This isn't some sanitized fairy tale. This world has teeth or, I guess, fangs?
It definitely makes you realize that this isn't a children's story. This is a world where danger lurks around every corner. And, frankly, that makes it all the more intriguing.
Absolutely. It's that contrast between the familiar and the unknown, the allure of adventure and the ever-present threat that keeps us hooked. And trust me, this is just the beginning. And just when you think you've got a handle on things, the story throws another curveball. Enter Dabiltson the Kobold.
It's not every day you see a kobold just casually strolling into a story about knights and wyverns, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of kobolds, what are your thoughts on them? I feel like in classic fantasy, they're often portrayed as like mischievous tricksters.
Oh, absolutely. There's definitely that element of mischief to them. But what makes Dabiltson interesting is that he kind of flips that on its head, at least at first. He's not exactly serving humans or causing chaos just for the fun of it. He's cautious, wary.
Almost like he doesn't quite trust Clotilda.
Exactly. And that's where the story gets clever. Remember the detail about the kobolds living in the foothills of the mountains?
Yeah, their home turf is being threatened by this wyvern, isn't it?
Precisely. It's their people in danger. Dabiltson's loyalty lies with his own kind, not necessarily with these humans caught in the crossfire. Adds a whole other layer of complexity to the story's power dynamics,
And then you have that scene where Clotilda saves Dabiltson from those giant spiders. Talk about an icebreaker.
That scene is amazing. It's not just about the action, though. It shows us who these characters really are. Clotilda's bravery, sure, but it's her compassion that shines through. She helps someone in need, regardless of species. And for Dabiltson, that act of kindness, of being seen as an individual worthy of saving, well, it forges a bond between them. You don't often see that kind of connection in these types of stories.
That's a good point. Even in these high fantasy settings, sometimes it's the genuine moments of connection that resonate the most. But okay, speaking of intriguing details, we had to talk about the silver arrow. The excerpt keeps mentioning it, but we never get the full story. It's like a puzzle piece that's missing.
Right. It's like the author dropped this big old question mark right in the middle of the action. We know it's old, potentially magical. It's the only life thing that hasn't decayed in that charnel pit. Makes you wonder about its origins, its powers.
Oh, totally. Like in those old legends where the hero is given this ancient weapon destined for some greater purpose. Is that what this arrow is for Clotilda? Is this her destiny?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Maybe it's a relic, a reminder of a past hero who faced a similar threat. Or maybe, just maybe, it's something entirely new, something forged in the heart of those mountains with a magic even the kobolds don't fully grasp. The possibilities are endless.
See, that's what I love about a good story. It leaves you wanting more. And speaking of wanting more, the climax of this excerpt, Clotilda, armed with her wits, her bow, and that mysterious silver arrow going toe-to-toe with a wyvern. Pure adrenaline. I don't want to spoil anything for our listeners, but let's just say Clotilda's victory. It's not just about being strong or powerful. It's about using your head.
Exactly. She outsmarts the wyvern, doesn't she? Uses her knowledge of the creature, its weaknesses, and she even uses that mail shirt trick.
Yeah.
So clever.
Right. It's a good reminder that sometimes brains are more powerful than brawn. And the ending. Talk about a twist. It's a happily ever after, but not in the way you'd expect.
Classic fairy tale trope, but with a Clotilda-style twist.
Totally. She gets ready to marry the prince, like you'd expect, but then she does something really cool. She actually lays down the law about what she wants from the marriage.
She takes control of her own destiny. It's awesome. She could have just gone along with the whole princess thing, right? But she makes it clear. She's not giving up the things she loves. Riding, archery, even protecting those kobolds.
She stays true to herself. I love that. It's so inspiring. It shows you that getting what you want isn't always about following the rules. Sometimes you have to make your own rules.
Absolutely. And speaking of breaking the mold, we can't forget that last image. Dabbled-son walking off with that wyvern egg tucked in his hat. I mean, what?
So strange, but also kind of perfect. Like it opened us a whole new world of possibilities. Did he hatch the egg? Did he raise the wyverns? They're going to be like a wyvern-kobold alliance?
Who knows? Maybe Dabbled-son trained the wyvern to be a vegetarian. Or maybe it's out there right now, terrorizing unsuspecting sheep. It's up to us to imagine what happens next.
And that's the beauty of a good story, isn't it? It stays with you long after you've finished reading it. So to our listeners, if you're as intrigued by Clotilda and the Wyvern as we are, do yourself a favor, find the full story, and hey, maybe you'll even be inspired to write your own ending. The possibilities, as they say, are endless. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. It's been a wild ride.